At the heart of ancient Japanese spirituality lies a profound paradox that continues to puzzle modern observers. Visitors to Japan often notice a vermilion Shinto gate standing beside the curved roof of a Buddhist temple, with worshippers bowing to both. In the 8th century, this blending was so complete that the state treated kami and Buddhas as parts of a single cosmic system. This syncretic tradition, known as shinbutsu shugo, shaped everything from political alliances to the daily lives of peasants. This integration was not a random cultural accident, but a deliberate state policy designed to stabilize a divided country. The coexistence of native animism and continental Buddhism allowed rulers to build a centralized administration without destroying local traditions. From the imperial court in Kyoto to the smallest mountain villages, the two faiths merged into a single system of rituals. Ordinary people saw no contradiction in praying to the natural spirits for harvest while seeking Buddhist salvation for their ancestors. Before the arrival of foreign scripts, the people of the Heian period practiced a native animism that focused on local environmental forces. They believed that spirits called kami inhabited mountains, ancient trees, and striking rock formations. In the 4th century AD, the early Yamato rulers consolidated their power by claiming direct descent from the sun goddess, Amaterasu. Worship was localized, focusing on purification and agricultural cycles rather than a unified theological dogma. These early worshippers did not have complex structures or sacred texts to guide their beliefs. They gathered in natural clearings where they felt the presence of the kami, treating the physical world as a living web of divine energy. Every mountain pass, waterfall, and ancient tree was treated with deep reverence and marked as a sacred site. Human survival depended on maintaining harmony with these nature spirits, who could bring either prosperity or sudden disaster. These early communities did not build permanent shrines. Instead, they marked sacred spaces with simple fences of unpainted wood and white gravel. In the 3rd century BC, agricultural villages gathered around sacred rocks called iwakura to pray for rain and abundant rice harvests. The primary goal of these rituals was hari, a physical and spiritual purification to wash away impurity and ward off natural disasters. This environmental animism formed the foundation of ancient Japanese daily life. Purification was the central act of early Shinto, performed to wash away physical and spiritual defilement before contacting the spirits. The Kojiki describes how the ancestral kami performed hari by washing in a river to cleanse themselves of pollution from the land of the dead. In daily life, peasants used fresh water from mountain springs to purify their hands and mouths before entering a sacred grove. This obsession with purity ensured that humans remained worthy of the kami's protection and blessings. The introduction of Buddhism in the 6th century shattered this isolated spiritual ecosystem and forced the Yamato court to confront a sophisticated global religion. According to the historical chronicle Nihon Shoki, King Seong of the Korean kingdom of Baekje sent a diplomatic delegation to Emperor Kinmei in the year 552 AD. The delegates presented several sacred sutras written in Chinese characters and a gilded bronze statue of Shakyamuni Buddha. King Seong's diplomatic letter praised Buddhism as the ultimate teaching, claiming it could fulfill all desires and bring infinite wisdom to the state. The arrival of the gilded bronze statue, gleaming with an unnatural foreign light, astounded the members of the imperial court. It represented not just a new deity, but a highly organized religion with written texts, monastic rules, and advanced art forms. Rulers realized that embracing this foreign faith could connect Japan to the advanced civilization of mainland Asia. Emperor Kinmei was deeply impressed by the beauty of the gilded bronze statue, but the introduction of a foreign deity sparked a bitter political conflict. The Soga clan, led by Soga no Iname, argued that embracing Buddhism would help Japan adopt advanced technology, writing systems, and administrative practices from China. In contrast, the Mononobe and Nakatomi clans rejected the foreign faith, claiming that worshipping foreign gods would offend the native kami. This division was not merely a theological debate, it was a struggle for political supremacy within the imperial court. The Soga clan saw Buddhism as a tool to bypass traditional clan-based privileges and strengthen the central authority of the emperor. The Mononobe and Nakatomi clans, whose hereditary offices were tied to traditional Shinto court rituals, feared that the foreign religion would destroy their political standing. The court became a battleground between progressive reformers and traditionalist defenders of the ancient gods. Shortly after the court received the Buddha statue, a sudden pestilence swept through the capital, causing widespread panic and death. The Mononobe clan seized on this tragedy, claiming that the plague was the direct result of the native kami seeking revenge for the foreign worship. Under the orders of Mononobe no Akoshi, soldiers seized the gilded bronze Buddha statue from the Soga residence and threw it into the Naniwa Canal in Osaka. To cleanse the land of foreign influence, the Mononobe soldiers also burned the Soga clan's newly built temple to the ground. This act of violence initiated decades of religious and political warfare, as the Soga clan vowed to retaliate. The Naniwa Canal became a symbol of this early clash, where a sacred gilded bronze statue lay submerged in the dark water. The native and foreign deities were now locked in a struggle for Japan's soul. The religious tension escalated into a brief but decisive civil war that culminated in the Battle of Shijusen in the year 587 AD. Soga no Yumako led the pro-Buddhist forces, supported by a young royal ally named Prince Shotoku, who prayed to the Buddhist guardians for victory. Prince Shotoku carved wooden statues of the four heavenly kings, the Shitenno, promising to build them a temple if they aided his forces. During the fierce battle, a Soga archer killed the Mononobe leader, Mononobe no Moriya, causing his forces to panic and disintegrate. This military victory established the political supremacy of the Soga clan and ensured that Buddhism would have a permanent place in Japan. The Soga clan immediately set about building temples and sponsoring monks, utilizing their new faith to consolidate their control over the court. The power of the traditional Shinto-aligned clans was permanently broken. Following the Soga victory, Prince Shotoku emerged as the leading patron of Buddhism and the chief architect of the early Japanese state. In the year 593 AD, the prince fulfilled his battlefield vow by constructing the temple complex of Shitennoji in Osaka. He also sponsored the construction of Horyuji in Nara in the year 607 AD, establishing a major center for Buddhist learning that preserved ancient wooden structures. The construction of these temple complexes introduced advanced continental architecture, stone masonry, and tile roofing techniques to the Japanese archipelago. Unlike the simple, unadorned Shinto sacred sites, these Buddhist temples were massive, colorful compounds with towering pagodas visible from miles away. The physical presence of these grand structures served as a daily reminder of the power of the foreign faith and the authority of the imperial patrons. The physical landscape of Yamato was transformed. To unify the state, Prince Shotoku drafted the 17-article constitution, which integrated Buddhist principles, Confucian ethics, and traditional Shinto concepts of harmony. Article 2 of the document commanded the state to deeply respect the three treasures, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. However, the constitution did not seek to replace the native ancestral deities with the foreign faith. Instead, the imperial court continued to sponsor major Shinto purification rituals, recognizing the emperor's role as the chief priest of the sun goddess, Amaterasu. This synthetic constitution established a dual administrative system, where Shinto rituals maintained cosmic order, while Buddhist teachings provided a universal moral framework. The emperor remained the high priest of the native kami, performing sacred rituals at the imperial palace to ensure agricultural fertility. At the same time, the court funded the translation of Buddhist sutras and sponsored the ordination of monks to protect the state. This dual governance ensured that neither religion was excluded from the administration. During the Taika reforms of the year 645 AD, the imperial court reorganized the administrative structure using Chinese legal models, further integrating the two faiths. Rulers realized that a unified state required the support of both the native ancestral spirits and the universal authority of Buddhism. The new laws regulated the priesthoods of both systems, placing them under the direct supervision of the central government. This legal integration transformed Shinto and Buddhism into official state institutions working for the dynasty. This official patronage also transformed the physical nature of Shinto shrines, which began to adopt permanent wooden architecture modeled after Buddhist halls. Before this period, Shinto sacred sites were temporary spaces with no permanent buildings to house the invisible kami. Shrines like the Ise Grand Shrine and Azumo Taisha, began to construct permanent wooden structures with raised floors and thatched roofs. This transition from natural clearings to architectural complexes was a direct consequence of Buddhist influence on Shinto. As Buddhism spread from the imperial court to the provinces, the physical landscape began to reflect the early stages of religious synthesis. Local lords constructed the first jingujai, which were Buddhist temples built directly inside the sacred precincts of existing Shinto shrines. One of the earliest recorded jingujai was established at the USA Hachiman Shrine in Oita Prefecture during the early 8th century. This physical proximity allowed Buddhist monks to perform purification rituals and chant sutras for the local kami. The construction of jingujai represented a practical solution for local clan chiefs who wanted to embrace the benefits of Buddhism without abandoning their ancestral protectors. By placing a Buddhist temple inside a Shinto shrine, they could worship both deities in a single sacred space. The daily presence of Buddhist monks chanting sutras near Shinto sanctuaries became a common sight in provincial Japan. This architectural integration marked the official birth of shinbutsu shugo, the merging of kami and Buddhas. The theological basis for building temples within shrines was the belief that Shinto kami were sentient beings subject to the laws of karma. Like humans, the kami were trapped in the cycle of rebirth, suffering from spiritual ignorance and desiring liberation. Buddhist monks performed rituals and chanted the Lotus Sutra at shrines to transfer karmic merit to the local spirits, helping them achieve salvation. In return, the grateful kami promised to use their supernatural powers to protect the temple and the surrounding community. This belief transformed the wild, unpredictable spirits of nature into moral agents who could actively participate in the Buddhist path. The kami were no longer seen as chaotic forces to be appeased with animal sacrifices or simple offerings, but as fellow seekers of enlightenment. Buddhist texts from the Nara period recorded numerous stories of kami appearing in dreams, begging monks to build temples and teach them the Dharma. This mutual relationship solidified the cooperation between Shinto priests and Buddhist monks. In the 8th century, the imperial court codified these syncretic practices under the legal framework of the Ritsuryo system. The Teiho Code, enacted in the year 701 AD, established the Jingikan or Department of Worship to oversee Shinto rituals and shrine administration. At the same time, the Sogo or Office of Monastic Affairs was created to regulate the growing population of Buddhist monks. Rather than keeping these departments separate, the imperial court used both to reinforce its centralized authority. The Jingikan and Sogo worked together to ensure that all religious activities supported the political goals of the Yamato dynasty. The court distributed official ranks to both Buddhist monks and Shinto priests, turning the clergy into state administrators. Shrine lands and temple assets were protected by imperial decree, and major rituals were synchronized in a single state calendar. This administrative synthesis ensured that the spiritual power of both the kami and the Buddha was mobilized to protect the emperor. In the year 741 AD, Emperor Shamu established the Kokubunjai system, ordering the construction of a state-funded Buddhist temple and nunnery in every province of Japan. These provincial temples were designed to act as spiritual centers, chanting the Golden Light Sutra to protect the nation from natural disasters. To ensure the success of these foreign temples, local administrators routinely placed them under the protection of the regional Shinto kami. The native spirits were designated as guardian deities, or Shinjugami, of the provincial Buddhist halls. This practice established a physical and spiritual network of protection that covered the entire Japanese archipelago. A typical provincial Kokubunjai temple featured a small Shinto shrine near its main gate to house the local guardian spirit. Monks performed daily rituals at these shrines, thanking the kami for protecting the temple lands and the surrounding community from plague. This arrangement showed that even the state's official Buddhist temples could not function without the cooperation of the local Shinto deities. In the year 743 AD, Emperor Shamu decreed the construction of a colossal bronze Buddha at Tadaijai Temple in Nara. This monumental project, the Daibutsu, required immense resources that threatened to bankrupt the treasury. Emperor Shamu sent the monk Jayoki to the USA Hachiman Shrine in Kyushu to seek the blessing of the powerful war kami, Hachiman. The Oracle of Hachiman declared that the kami would protect the construction, which eased public anxiety and secured vital donations. The construction of the Daibutsu was the largest engineering project in Japanese history, requiring over 1 million pounds of copper and gold. Emperor Shamu realized that such a massive undertaking needed more than just human labor. It required the active support of all spiritual forces. By securing the blessing of the country's most influential Shinto deity, the emperor gained the political legitimacy needed to tax the provinces. The project became a national symbol of the union between the court, the monks, and the kami. Emperor Shamu chose the charismatic monk Jayoki to lead the public fundraising campaign for the Great Buddha. Jayoki was highly respected by the common people for his charitable works, including building roads, bridges, and shelters for the poor. He traveled throughout the provinces, preaching that contributing a single coin or a handful of clay to the Daibutsu would bring infinite spiritual merit. His popular appeal mobilized thousands of peasants to volunteer as laborers for the construction. Shortly after the Oracle of Hachiman was delivered, gold was discovered in the northern province of Mutsu in the year 749 AD. The court believed this sudden discovery of gold was a miraculous gift from the kami Hachiman to complete the Buddha statue. Emperor Shamu declared that the native spirits and the Buddhas had worked together to supply the precious metal. This event convinced the population that the physical landscape itself supported the new faith. In the year 749 AD, the imperial court transferred a branch of the Hachiman deity from Kyushu to Nara. A special shrine, the Tamukayama Hachimangu, was constructed next to Tadaijai to act as the permanent guardian of the great Buddha. The court granted Hachiman the high Buddhist title of Daibosatsu, or Great Bodhisattva, recognizing him as an enlightened protector of the Dharma. This was the first time a traditional Japanese kami was officially recognized as a Buddhist deity. The establishment of Tamukayama Hachimangu next to the Great Buddha Hall physically manifested the new theological alliance. Worshippers visiting Tadaijai would bow to the Shinto shrine before entering the massive wooden hall of the Buddha. The presence of Hachiman Daibosatsu showed that the local spirits of Japan were active participants in the universal Buddhist hierarchy. This spatial arrangement set a precedent for shrines and temples to share the same sacred grounds for the next 1,000 years. The dedication ceremony of the Great Buddha in the year 752 AD was the grandest international event in ancient Japanese history. Emperor Shamu, Empress Kamiyo, and hundreds of foreign monks gathered at Tadaijai for the eye-opening ritual, led by the Indian monk Bodhisna. A large procession of Shinto priests from USA Hachiman also attended, carrying the sacred imperial carriage of the kami to the temple. The ceremony represented the peak of state-sponsored religious synthesis. During the ceremony, the Indian monk Bodhisna painted eyes onto the colossal bronze face of the Buddha, symbolically bringing the statue to life. The Shinto carriage of Hachiman sat in the center of the courtyard, receiving the same honors as the imperial family and high monks. This ritual demonstrated that the native kami was present to witness and protect the arrival of the cosmic Buddha. The ceremony united Shinto music and Buddhist chanting into a single state ritual. In the Heian period, the court moved the capital to Kyoto in the year 794 AD to escape the political influence of Nara temples. Emperor Kanmu sought a new spiritual balance by patronizing two young monks who studied esoteric Buddhism in China. Seicho founded the Tendai sect on Mount Hiei, while Kyukai established the Shingon sect on Mount Koya. Both mountain retreats were constructed on sites that had been sacred to local Shinto kami for centuries. The move to Kyoto was motivated by the fear that the powerful Nara monasteries were dominating the imperial court. Emperor Kanmu wanted to start fresh in a new capital, protected by natural geographic features and local guardian spirits. He selected Mount Hiei, northeast of the city, as the natural guardian barrier against evil spirits. By placing Seicho's new Tendai monastery on this sacred peak, the emperor aligned Buddhist spiritual defense with traditional Shinto geomancy. Seicho established the temple in Ryakujai on Mount Hiei, a mountain that was protected by the ancient agricultural kami Oyamakui. To secure the safety of his monastery, Seicho built a shrine for Oyamakui and called him the Mountain King or Sano. The Tendai monks developed a syncretic theology known as Sano Shinto, which linked the mountain spirits to Buddhist cosmological principles. They claimed that the mountain's natural features were physical representations of the Lotus Sutra. Sano Shinto argued that the mountain deity Sano was a local Japanese manifestation of the historical Shakyamuni Buddha. This theory allowed the monks of Enryakuji to claim spiritual authority over the surrounding valleys and agricultural lands. The local warriors who worshipped the mountain kami were recruited to protect the monastery, forming the first armies of warrior monks. The integration of Sano and the Buddha turned Mount Hiei into a powerful political and military stronghold. Meanwhile, Kyukai founded the temple complex of Kongabuji on Mount Koya in the year 816 AD after receiving a land grant. According to Shingon legend, Kyukai was guided to the site by the mountain goddess New Myojin, who appeared with two black dogs. Kyukai constructed a Shinto shrine dedicated to New Myojin at the entrance of the temple complex. He declared that esoteric rituals could not be performed without the protection of these local deities. Kyukai's integration of New Myojin and her son Kariba Myojin established a lasting alliance between Shingon Buddhism and the mountain spirits. Shingon monks treated the local goddess as the true owner of Mount Koya, seeking her permission before constructing new halls. In return, New Myojin was recognized as a protector of the esoteric teachings, shielding the monks from demonic interference. This partnership, known as Ryabu Shinto, ensured that Shingon rituals and kami worship remained completely inseparable. Esoteric Buddhism, with its focus on visual mandalas, secret mudras, and fire rituals called goma, was highly compatible with Shinto practice. The Shingon fire ritual, which involved burning wooden sticks to destroy worldly passions, was adapted to include prayers for the local kami. Monks used the goma fire to purify the shrines and invite the spirits to witness the power of esoteric Buddhism. In return, the kami were believed to grant immediate physical benefits like rainfall. The visual and sensory power of the goma ritual, with its crackling flames and rhythmic drumming, fascinated both aristocrats and commoners. Monks chanted esoteric dharanis to invoke the protective powers of both the Buddhas and the local kami. Worshippers believed that the heat of the fire could dissolve negative karma and immediately secure the favor of the nature spirits. This practical focus on worldly benefits made esoteric Buddhism the dominant religious force of the Heian court. The physical manifestation of this integration was the rapid spread of Jinguji across the provinces during the 9th and 10th centuries. Major Shinto shrines, such as the Kashima Shrine in Ibaraki and the Katori Shrine in Chiba, established their own temple buildings. At these sites, Buddhist statues were placed alongside Shinto sacred objects, and monks and priests shared administrative duties. The daily routine at a provincial shrine involved chanting the Heart Sutra before the sanctuary of the kami. The spread of Jinguji created a unified sacred geography, where the boundaries between Shinto and Buddhism were completely erased. A visitor to a local shrine would see Buddhist pagodas rising beside Shinto wooden gates and hear the sounds of wooden temple drums mixing with Shinto bells. Shinto priests and Buddhist monks operated as joint guardians of the community's spiritual welfare. This institutional synthesis ensured that the dual faith was present in every corner of provincial daily life. The theological framework that unified these practices was the honji suijaku theory, which became the standard doctrine of medieval Japan. Under this system, universal Buddhas were classified as honji, or the original essence, while the kami were suijaku, or manifest traces. The kami were viewed as compassionate transformations of the Buddhas, who assumed local forms to save the Japanese people. For example, Dainishi Nyorai, the cosmic Vairocana Buddha, was identified as the honji of the sun goddess Amaterasu. This theory provided an intellectual justification for what was already happening in daily life, resolving any theological contradictions. Rather than viewing Shinto and Buddhism as competing religions, Honji Suijaku treated them as two sides of the same spiritual coin. The native Japanese kami were seen as compassionate guides who prepared the population for the deeper teachings of the Buddha. This doctrine allowed the Japanese people to maintain their ancient ancestral customs while embracing a global religion. Under the Honji Suijaku system, specific pairings of Buddhas and kami were established and recorded in sacred scrolls. The war god Hachiman was identified as a manifestation of Amida Buddha, the deity of the Western Pure Land. The goddess of mercy, Senjukanon, was paired with the agricultural deity of the Kumano Mountains. These pairings were not static. Different temples developed their own local correlations to claim spiritual superiority over rivals. These pairings were illustrated in beautiful hanging scrolls known as honji suijaku mandalas, which hung in both temples and shrines. These paintings depicted the Shinto kami in their traditional robes sitting on clouds, with their original Buddhist prototype hovering directly above them. Worshippers studied these visual guides to understand which Buddha they were praying to when they visited a local shrine. This visual culture made the abstract theological concepts accessible to the illiterate common people. For the ordinary people of the Heian period, these theological classifications were less important than the practical benefits of the dual faith. A typical farming household relied on the local kami for the purification of fields and the protection of new births. At the same time, they relied on Buddhist monks for funeral rites, memorial services, and prayers for deceased ancestors. Because ancient Shinto had no concept of an afterlife or salvation, Buddhism filled this critical emotional void. This functional division of labor created a balanced spiritual ecosystem that addressed all aspects of human existence. Shinto managed the joys and challenges of the physical world, including agriculture, health, fertility, and community celebrations. Buddhism provided comfort and guidance for the mysterious transition of death, offering rituals to ensure a peaceful rebirth. By utilizing both systems, the Japanese people built a comprehensive framework for navigating the trials of daily life. This dual worship was integrated directly into the layout of the traditional home through the installation of two separate domestic altars. The kamidana, or kami shelf, was a small wooden model of a Shinto shrine mounted high on a wall to receive offerings of rice. Nearby, the family placed the butsudan, a dark lacquered wooden cabinet containing ancestral tablets and a small Buddhist image. Each morning, family members would offer prayers at both altars, maintaining spiritual harmony. The presence of both altars in the same room showed how deeply the religious synthesis was woven into domestic life. Family members began their day by placing fresh water and rice on the kamidana to thank the local guardian spirits. They would then turn to the butsudan, lighting incense and ringing a small bronze bell to honor their ancestors and the Buddha. This daily routine passed the syncretic traditions down through generations, ensuring their survival. In the mountains of Japan, a unique syncretic movement known as shugendo emerged during the 8th and 9th centuries. Founded by the semi-legendary ascetic Enno-Gyoja, shugendo combined Shinto mountain worship, esoteric Buddhist rituals, and Taoist magic. The practitioners, called yamabushi, believed that rugged peaks were physical mandalas where they could attain supernatural powers. They traveled to sacred mountains like Mount Ame in Nara and Mount Haguro in Yamagata to undergo rigorous physical trials. The yamabushi sought to achieve spiritual enlightenment by subjecting their bodies to the extreme forces of the natural world. They believed that the physical suffering endured in the wilderness would burn away their negative karma and unlock hidden spiritual abilities. By climbing vertical cliffs and hanging over gorges, they demonstrated their absolute trust in the protective powers of the kami and Buddhas. Shugendo bridged the gap between raw nature worship and structured Buddhist asceticism. The practice of shugendo in the medieval period relied heavily on Nachai Falls, a spectacular waterfall in Wakayama Prefecture. This natural wonder was worshipped as the Shinto deity Hirogonjin and identified as a manifestation of Senju Kannon. Ascetics stood under the freezing water of Nachai Falls, chanting the Lotus Sutra to purify their bodies. This grueling ritual, called takagyo, was believed to grant the practitioner the spiritual power of both the kami and the Buddha, turning the waterfall into a living syncretic temple. The roar of Nachai Falls provided a dramatic sensory background for these intensive purification rituals. Practitioners believed that the impact of the freezing water on their heads would shock their systems and drive away evil influences. By chanting Buddhist mantras while standing in the sacred Shinto waters, they unified the two faiths in a single physical act. The waterfall remains a major pilgrimage site where the physical merging of religions is still practiced today. The agricultural cycle reinforced the syncretic calendar of farming communities throughout the Heian and Kamakura periods. In spring, villagers gathered at local shrines to perform ta-sobai, a ritual dance to welcome the mountain kami. Once the rice was planted, the community transitioned to Buddhist rituals, hosting the Uraban festival in midsummer to feed ancestral spirits. The autumn harvest was celebrated with grand Shinto matsuri, where portable shrines called mikoshi were carried through the village. This calendar of festivals ensured that every phase of the farming year was protected by both spiritual systems. In spring, the Shinto rituals invited the kami down to the fields to protect the delicate rice seedlings from pestilence. In summer, the Buddhist Aben rituals pacified the ancestral dead, ensuring they would not return as hungry ghosts to disrupt the harvest. The autumn festival was a joint celebration where both monks and Shinto priests blessed the grain. The public festivals of the capital city of Kyoto also reflected this deep religious synthesis. The Jinmatsuri, which began in the year 869 AD, was originally organized as a religious ritual to stop a devastating epidemic. The imperial court ordered the construction of 66 portable shrines to represent the provinces of Japan, bringing them to Yasaka Shrine. Buddhist monks from Enryakuji joined Shinto priests to perform prayers to appease Gazu Tenno, a syncretic deity of pestilence. Gazu Tenno, the central deity of the Jinmatsuri, was a classic example of syncretic blending. He was viewed as a fusion of the Shinto storm kami Susanoo and the Buddhist medicine deity Yakushi Nyorai. Worshippers believed that this powerful combination could control the spread of contagious diseases that devastated the crowded capital. The festival evolved from a solemn purification rite into a grand civic event, showcasing the combined power of both religions. The concept of goryoi, or the pacification of vengeful spirits, was a major area of cooperation between Shinto and Buddhist clergy. In the year 903 AD, the scholar-statesman Sugawara no Michizane died in exile in Kyushu after being falsely accused of treason. When natural disasters struck Kyoto soon after, the court believed Michizane's angry spirit was seeking revenge. To appease him, the court built Katano Tenmungu Shrine in the year 947 AD, deifying him as Tenjin. Buddhist monks from Enryakuji performed purification rituals and chanted the Lotus Sutra at Katano Tenmungu to pacify Michizane's soul. They believed that the power of the Buddhist teachings could transform his angry, destructive ghost into a peaceful Shinto deity of learning. This transformation showed that the two religions worked as a dual mechanism for managing the spiritual dangers of the state. Tenjin eventually became one of Japan's most beloved guardian spirits. The rise of the warrior class in the late Heian period saw Buddhist temples deploy Shinto symbols to assert their political power. The warrior monks, or Sohei, of Enryakuji on Mount Hiei marched into Kyoto to protest imperial decisions. During these demonstrations, the Sohei carried the sacred portable shrines, or mikoshi of the Hiyoshi Taisha shrine on their shoulders. They believed that the court would not dare to attack the physical vessel of the mountain kami Sano. This tactic combined Buddhist military power with traditional Shinto spiritual intimidation, paralyzing the imperial administration. If the government soldiers fired arrows at the mikoshi, they risked committing a terrible sacrilege that would bring the wrath of the mountain spirit. The monks utilized this fear to secure tax exemptions and land concessions from the terrified courtiers. This aggressive synthesis showed how the merging of the two faiths could be used for political coercion. A similar tactic was employed by the warrior monks of Kafukuji Temple in Nara, who utilized the symbols of the Kasuga Grand Shrine. In the 12th century, these monks marched into Kyoto carrying the sacred Sakaki branch of the Kasuga Kami, the ancestral protector of the Fujiwara clan. The monks claimed that the kami had abandoned Nara due to the court's actions and would not return until their demands were met. The presence of the sacred branch forced the court to yield. The Kasuga Grand Shrine in Kafukuji operated as a single political and economic unit, sharing resources and administrative staff. The deification of the Kasuga Kami as local traces of Buddhist bodhisattvas was used to justify the temple's control over Nara. When the monks carried the sacred Sakaki branch, they were bringing the physical presence of the clan's ancestor to demand justice. This practice demonstrated how Shinto ancestral ties were integrated into Buddhist institutional power. The physical integration of Shinto and Buddhism was visible in the custom of imikatoba, or taboo words, at the Grand Shrine of Ise. Although Ise maintained a ceremonial separation, the priests used substitute words to avoid Buddhist defilement. A Buddha was referred to as the child of the middle, a sutra was called dyed paper, and a temple was named a tiled roof. These linguistic substitutions showed that even this Shinto sanctuary actively acknowledged the pervasive presence of Buddhism. This custom of using taboo words was a way for the Ise priests to maintain their ritual purity while living in a thoroughly Buddhist society. By refusing to speak the foreign words directly, they preserved the ancient Shinto character of the sun goddess's sanctuary. Yet the very necessity of these code words proved that Buddhism was the dominant cultural force of the era. The linguistic game allowed both systems to coexist without directly compromising their respective sacred boundaries. Despite these linguistic taboos, the connection between Ise and Buddhism was reinforced by the temple Kongoshoji on Mount Asama. Built in the late 9th century, this temple sat just outside the Grand Shrine of Ise. Pilgrims believed that their journey was incomplete without climbing Mount Asama to pray at Kongoshoji. The temple housed a statue of Kokuzo Bisatsu, who was viewed as the Buddhist protector of the imperial ancestors, creating a unified pilgrimage route that crossed religious boundaries. The phrase "visit Ise, but do not forget Asama" became a popular slogan among medieval travelers. The temple on Mount Asama provided the necessary Buddhist component to the Shinto pilgrimage, offering prayers for the ancestors of the visitors. Pilgrims believed that the sun goddess Amaterasu and the bodhisattva Kokuzo were two aspects of the same protective energy. This pilgrimage route demonstrated how the two faiths collaborated to satisfy the spiritual needs of the populace. In the late 15th century, Yoshida Kanetomo challenged the honji suijaku theory by founding Yoshida Shinto. In his work Yuitsu Shinto Myobo Yoshu, he proposed a reversed hierarchy where the kami were the true origin and Buddhas were the branches. He argued that Shinto was the root of all world religions, while Buddhism and Confucianism were merely its leaves and flowers. This bold assertion marked the first major intellectual attempt to establish an independent Shinto identity. Kanetomo traveled throughout the country, establishing shrines and initiating priests into his new system, which bypassed Buddhist control. He claimed that the imperial sun goddess had given his ancestors secret scriptures, containing the original, uncorrupted teachings of Shinto. By arguing that Buddhism was merely a derivative of Shinto, he attempted to reverse centuries of Buddhist dominance. This intellectual movement laid the early seeds for the separation of the two faiths. In the year 1192, Minamoto no Yoritomo established the Kamakura shogunate, initiating the rise of the warrior class. Yoritomo chose Hachiman, the syncretic god of war, as the patron deity of the shogunate and the Minamoto clan. He constructed the grand Surugeaka Hachiman shrine in Kamakura, placing a Buddhist temple directly within its grounds. Samurai warriors prayed to Hachiman Daibasatsu for victory in battle, carrying amulets that blended Buddhist sutras with Shinto seals. The patronage of the shogunate elevated Hachiman Daibasatsu to the peak of national political importance, making him the supreme protector of the samurai. The Tsurugeaka Hachiman Shrine became the administrative and spiritual center of the Kamakura government, hosting both Shinto purification rites and Buddhist sutra readings. The warriors saw no contradiction in combining Shinto martial courage with Buddhist prayers for rebirth. This military syncretism shaped the ethical code of the early samurai class. In the year 1175, when the monk Honen founded the Jodoshu, or Pure Land sect, he introduced a practice that transformed daily religious life. Honen taught that chanting the Nembutsu, the name of Amida Buddha, was the only requirement for rebirth in the Western paradise. Although his teachings focused on Amida, Honen did not instruct followers to abandon their Shinto beliefs. Instead, he argued that the local kami were protectors who cleared obstacles from a believer's path, helping them focus on the Nembutsu. Honen's teachings made salvation accessible to the common people, who previously could not afford the expensive rituals of the elite temples. The local Shinto kami were reinterpreted as compassionate guardians who kept the believer healthy in this life, so they could practice the Nembutsu. This explanation comforted the peasants, who feared that adopting a single-minded devotion to Amida would anger their ancestral spirits. The kami and Amida Buddha were presented as partners in the path to salvation. In the 13th century, Shinran founded the Jodo Shinshu sect, which became Japan's most popular Buddhist movement. Shinran taught that rebirth in the Pure Land was achieved through absolute faith in Amida Buddha. To reassure his followers, Shinran wrote that those who trusted in Amida were automatically protected by all the Shinto kami. He claimed that the native gods bowed before the light of Amida and would never harm a true believer, allowing common peasants to embrace Jodo Shinshu without fearing local spirits. This teaching removed the deep-seated fear of environmental taboos and spiritual curses that haunted the daily life of medieval peasants. By declaring that faith in Amida placed a believer under a shield of universal protection, Shinran liberated them from excessive shrine regulations. Yet Jodo Shinshu homes still maintained a respect for local customs, showing that Shinto and Buddhism coexisted in practice. The syncretic mindset remained the standard way of viewing the spiritual world. The introduction of Zen Buddhism by Eisai, who founded the Rinzai sect in the year 1191, brought a new aesthetic to Japan. Zen focused on silent meditation, or zazen, and direct realization rather than complex rituals or reliance on external deities. Despite this emphasis on self-reliance, Rinzai temples like Kenchojai in Kamakura still maintained shrines for local protector kami on their grounds. Zen monks recognized that respecting the native spirits helped integrate their foreign monastic practices into the local community. At Kenchojai, the monks constructed a small Shinto shrine dedicated to the dragon kami, the protector of water resources. The monks performed daily purification rituals at this shrine, chanting sutras to ensure a steady water supply for the monastery's kitchens and gardens. This practice showed that even the most austere Zen monasteries had to adapt to the local environment and honor the native spirits of the land. Shinto and Zen became partners in creating a self-sufficient monastic life. Dojin, who returned from China in the year 1227, established the Sodo Zen sect and built the temple Aiheijai in Echizen province. Dojin emphasized the practice of shikantaza, or silent sitting, as the direct realization of Buddha nature. Despite this focus on meditation, Dojin maintained a shrine for Hakusen Myojin, the local mountain goddess on the temple grounds. Sodo monks performed regular rituals to appease the mountain spirit, showing that even Sodo Zen integrated Shinto guardians into its monastic routine. The shrine of Hakusen Myojin at Aiheijai was situated on the hillside, overlooking the main monastic halls. The monks believed that the mountain goddess protected the remote temple from fire, landslides, and wild animals. Every morning, after the long hours of silent zazen, the abbot of Aiheijai would lead a procession to the shrine to offer incense. This daily ritual demonstrated that the pursuit of Buddhist enlightenment was physically grounded in the Shinto landscape of Japan. In the year 1260, the monk Nichiren submitted his treatise, the Rissho Ankoku Ran, to the ruling Hojo Regency in Kamakura. In this document, he argued that the native kami had abandoned Japan because the state sponsored false Buddhist teachings. Nichiren promised that if the government embraced the Lotus Sutra, the kami Tensho Daijin and Hachiman would return to protect the land from Mongol invasion. This treatise tied the spiritual power of Shinto deities directly to Buddhist scriptural orthodoxy. Nichiren's message was unique because he used Shinto national deities to argue for a specific Buddhist reform. He claimed that the physical safety of the nation depended on the alignment between the government, the Lotus Sutra, and the native spirits. If the state ignored the true law, the kami would withdraw their protection, leaving Japan vulnerable to foreign conquest. This doctrine placed Shinto patriotism at the center of his aggressive Buddhist preaching, attracting many samurai. The Mongol invasion of the year 1274 AD tested the nation's faith in this dual spiritual defense system. When the fleet of Kublai Khan landed at Hakata Bay in Kyushu, the court ordered continuous prayers at shrines and temples. A sudden typhoon destroyed the Mongol fleet, an event that the public attributed to the kamikaze, or divine wind, sent by the kami. Buddhist monks claimed their chanting of esoteric rituals had activated these protective powers, reinforcing the belief in a dual spiritual shield. The victory at Hakata Bay was celebrated throughout the country as absolute proof of the alliance between the kami and Buddhas. Shinto shrines and Buddhist temples both received rewards from the Kamakura shogunate for their spiritual contributions. The common people believed that the physical winds of the typhoon were the breath of the native deities, activated by the chanting of the monks. This shared triumph unified the population under a single national identity, protected by a dual spiritual shield. In the year 1281 AD, Kublai Khan launched a second, larger invasion force that threatened to conquer Japan. The court and the Kamakura shogunate ordered continuous rituals at the Grand Shrine of Ise and the temple Enryakujai. When another violent typhoon, the second kamikaze, destroyed the Mongol fleet, the nation celebrated it as proof of divine protection. The victory was claimed by both Shinto priests and Buddhist monks, who argued their joint prayers saved the country, solidifying the syncretic worldview. This second victory established the myth of Japan as a divine land, or shinkoku, that could never be conquered by foreign powers. Rulers and commoners alike believed that the native Shinto kami and the universal Buddhist deities worked together to defend the archipelago. This belief lasted for centuries, shaping the isolationist policies of later shoguns. The joint prayers at Ise and Mount Hiei became the legendary model for national defense during external crises. During the Muromachi period, the Ashikaga shogunate used this syncretic system to establish political legitimacy. Shogun Ashikaga Takoji built the Zen temple Tenryuji in the year 1339 to pacify the spirit of Emperor Go-Daigo. Takoji appointed the Zen monk Muso Sosuke to design the temple's garden, which integrated Zen principles with Shinto natural aesthetics. The shogunate also patronized the Iwashimizu Hachimangu shrine, using Zen monks for administration while maintaining traditional Shinto rituals, keeping the dual system at the heart of governance. The landscape garden at Tenryuji, designed by Muso Sosuke, was a masterpiece of this cultural synthesis. It utilized the natural mountain behind the temple as borrowed scenery, incorporating the Shinto reverence for natural rock formations into a Zen meditation space. This garden design showed that the search for Zen mindfulness was physically integrated with the local landscape. The shogunate's patronage of such projects demonstrated how the dual faiths were used to promote cultural sophistication and peace. In the Sengoku period, this synthesis took a militant turn with the rise of the Ikoiki Leagues. These leagues, consisting of Jodo Shinshu peasants, built the fortress temple of Ishiyama Honganji in Osaka. They marched into battle carrying banners emblazoned with the Nembutsu chant. Meanwhile, traditional warlords like Yusugi Kenshin prayed to Bishamon, the Buddhist god of war, alongside Hachiman, the Shinto deity. This militarization showed that both Buddhist and Shinto symbols were used to justify political violence and warfare. The battlefield became a clash of religious symbols, as different factions claimed the support of both native kami and Buddhas. Warlords painted the Moen emblems of Shinto shrines onto their war banners next to Buddhist mantras. The warriors believed that dying in battle under the gaze of the syncretic war god Hachiman would guarantee their immediate rebirth in the Pure Land. This militant synthesis showed how the peaceful doctrines of Buddhism were adapted to the violent realities of the warring states period. The arrival of Jesuit missionaries like Francis Xavier in the year 1549 introduced Christianity, challenging this syncretic worldview. Missionaries condemned both Shinto kami and Buddhist Buddhas as false idols. In response, warlords like Toyotomi Hideyoshi used the existing Buddhist Shinto network to counter the foreign faith. Hideyoshi issued the Christian Expulsion Edict in the year 1587, ordering missionaries to leave and forcing citizens to register at temples. This external threat forced the traditional religions to align closer to protect the social order. The foreign threat of Christianity created a sense of national solidarity among the traditional clergy of both systems. Shinto shrines and Buddhist temples worked together to identify secret Christians, checking family registers and requiring public oaths of faith before the kami. This cooperation established a state-monitored system of religious conformity that lasted throughout the Edo period. The native spirits and the foreign Buddha were now the joint guardians of Japan's borders against Western influence. After the Battle of Sekigahara in the year 1600, Tokugawa Ieyasu established the Tokugawa shogunate, initiating the Edo period. To eliminate Christianity, the shogunate established the Teryuke system, forcing every household to register with a local Buddhist temple. These temples tracked births and deaths through registers known as shumanarimacha. However, this mandatory registration did not suppress Shinto practices. Families still visited Shinto shrines for festivals, maintaining their dual religious identity in daily life. After Tokugawa Ieyasu died in the year 1616, his advisor, the Tendai monk Tenkai, orchestrated his deification under the Shinto title Tosho Daigonjin. This title identified Ieyasu as a local Shinto manifestation of the historical Buddha. Tenkai constructed the magnificent Toshogu shrine in Nikko, which featured Buddhist pagoda architecture alongside Shinto shrine elements. This monument of state power solidified the idea that the shogunate's founder was a guardian deity protecting the peace of the nation. In the late 18th century, the Kokugaku intellectual movement led by Matori Norinaga began to challenge this syncretic culture. Norinaga spent over 30 years analyzing the Kojiki to reconstruct the native language and customs of the Age of the Gods, arguing for a Shinto freed from Buddhist philosophy. This intellectual movement laid the foundation for the Meiji Restoration in the year 1868. The new government issued the Shinbutsu Bunri Decree, ordering the complete separation of Shinto and Buddhism, ending a millennium of synthesis. The violent wave of anti-Buddhist destruction, known as Heibutsu Kishaku, saw temples demolished and ancient statues smashed. Yet in the private lives of families, the syncretic habits could not be erased. Today, modern Japanese households still maintain both the kamidana and the butsudan in their living rooms, side by side. The quiet physical image of these domestic altars, lit by small candles in the dim evening light, shows that the ancient synthesis of Shinto and Buddhism survives in daily routines.